Imagine walking into your attic, dusting off a trunk from your childhood, and discovering a stack of old love letters. As you begin to read the faded ink, your heart sinks. They're not from your parents or grandparents. They're from your husband's past, hidden away for decades. Sarah thought she knew her husband better than anyone. She'd known him since college. They'd built a life together and raised two beautiful children. But as she sat in the attic, surrounded by old trunks and dusty memories, Sarah stumbled upon a small box with a faded label that read, "Do not open." Her heart sank as she carefully opened it, revealing a stack of yellowed letters tied with a worn ribbon. As she gently untied the ribbon, her hands began to tremble. The letters were old, but the handwriting was unmistakable, his. Her heart skipped a beat as she hesitated, wondering if she should even open them. But curiosity got the better of her. She started to read the first letter, dated over 20 years ago, when they were still dating. "My dearest Sarah," it began. "I'm writing this from Paris, where I've been living for a few months now." The words blurred as tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. How could he have kept this a secret? She felt like she was reading about someone else's life, not their own. Her mind racing, she wondered if there were more letters, and what they might reveal. Was it possible that all these years he'd been living two lives, one with her, and another elsewhere? As I started reading the letters, I felt like I was stepping into a world I never knew existed. The handwriting on the first letter was unmistakably his, the same swooping loops and messy scribbles that I had grown accustomed to over the years. But it wasn't just the handwriting that sent shivers down my spine. It was what he wrote. "My dearest Emily, every moment with you is a dream come true." My heart sank as I read those words. Who was this Emily? And why had he written such intimate thoughts to her? As I sat in my quiet home, surrounded by the sterile silence that had become my reality, I stared at the letter with a mix of emotions swirling inside me. The words on the page seemed to leap out at me. "My dearest Emily, every moment I spend without you is an eternity." My mind reeled as I wondered who this Emily could be. Was she a colleague? A friend from college? Or someone more? I thought about all the times my husband had spoken about his work, his friends, and his family, but never once mentioned anyone by that name. I couldn't shake off the feeling that there was more to Emily than what my husband had let on. So, I started researching online, trying to find any information about this person. I began by searching social media platforms, but all I found were a few profiles with the name Emily, none of which seemed connected to my husband's past. I then tried looking up old friends and acquaintances' websites, blog posts, or articles, anything that might mention Emily's name. But every lead ended in a dead end. I even went as far as searching for obituaries and news articles from my husband's hometown, hoping that some mention of an Emily would pop up. The more I searched, the more questions I had. Why did my husband never tell me about this person? Was she someone important to him? And what exactly was their relationship like? I felt like a detective trying to piece together clues, but every thread seemed to lead to a brick wall. My mind was racing with possibilities and scenarios, each one leaving me feeling more confused and anxious than the last. I decided to confront him about the letters, about Emily. I couldn't shake off the feeling that there was more to this story than he was letting on. We were in the kitchen, making breakfast together. A normal Sunday morning, or so it seemed. But as soon as I brought up her name, his expression changed. He looked at me with this innocence, like he had no idea what I was talking about. "What are you referring to?" he asked, his voice laced with curiosity. I handed him the letter, the one with Emily's perfume still on it. His eyes scanned the page, and for a moment, I thought I saw something flicker in his gaze. Guilt? Shame? But then, it was gone. He looked up at me, his eyes locked onto mine, and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." The calmness of our morning breakfast turned into a stormy sea, the words tumbling out of my mouth like a litany of accusations. "Don't lie to me. I know something's going on." But he just kept denying it, his voice rising in defense. I remember the look on John's face when I confronted him about Emily. It was a mix of shock, hurt, and denial all rolled into one. He sat there, his eyes wide with what seemed like genuine pain, and said, "Sarah, how could you even think that? I would never do something to hurt you like that." His voice was shaking, and for a moment, I believed him. Maybe it's because we'd been married for so long, or maybe it's because I wanted to believe him. But in that instant, I thought he was telling the truth. He even started crying, which only made me feel more guilty for accusing him of anything. As the days went by, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something wasn't quite right in my marriage. Every time John looked at me with those pleading eyes, I felt a knot in my stomach. How could he deny it? I kept thinking. We'd been married for over a decade, and I thought we knew each other inside out. But now, I was starting to question everything. I'd find myself scrolling through old photos of us on our honeymoon, wondering if that was just a facade. Did he ever really love me? The memories of our first date, the way he proposed, all of it seemed tainted now. Even the little things he used to do for me, like leaving my favorite coffee mug out in the morning, no longer felt genuine. I'd catch myself thinking about his words from that conversation. "I would never hurt you." But what did that even mean? Wasn't keeping a secret family a form of hurting me too? I'll never forget the day I stumbled upon that old photo album in our attic. It was hidden away, tucked between some dusty trunks and forgotten memories. As I flipped through its yellowed pages, a chill ran down my spine. There were pictures of John with a woman who looked eerily like me. The same piercing green eyes, the same mischievous smile. It was as if someone had photoshopped Emily's face onto his arm around some stranger. But no, this was real. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How could he have kept this from me? And what did those cryptic words "to protect you" even mean now? I couldn't help but wonder if this woman was someone else, someone special. The more I looked at these pictures, the more questions I had. Who was she? When did they meet? Why didn't John ever mention her to me? My mind was racing with scenarios, each one more painful than the last. And yet, I couldn't look away. I felt like I was staring into a parallel universe, one where my husband's life was lived outside of our marriage. I'll never forget the day I stumbled upon a hidden folder on John's laptop. It was as if he had been waiting for me to find out about his secret family. Inside were love letters, handwritten notes, and photos of another woman. Their children. The dates went back years, long before we even met. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, my world spinning out of control. As I read through the letters, I saw a side of John I never knew existed. He wrote about his love for this other woman, his desire to leave me and start anew with her. The pain was overwhelming, but what hurt even more was that he'd been living two separate lives all along. Our marriage, our family, it was all just a facade. I couldn't help but wonder how many times he'd made the same promises to this other woman. The letters described happy memories, vacations, birthdays, holidays spent together as a family. But there were also notes of desperation, pleas for forgiveness and understanding. It was like reading about a stranger's life, one that I had unknowingly been a part of. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. My husband's secret family was real, and it was a betrayal I never saw coming. As I sat in our small apartment, surrounded by the memories we had made together, I couldn't help but wonder how my husband could keep this secret from me for so long. The years of deceit were etched on his face, like fine lines and wrinkles that came with age, but also with guilt. I remembered the countless nights he would leave late to work or meet friends, only to return in the early hours exhausted. He would always apologize for being absent, but I never thought twice about it. How could I? I loved him, and I wanted to believe that his love for me was genuine. But now, with this truth staring me in the face, I couldn't help but feel a wave of anger wash over me. Anger towards myself for not seeing it sooner, anger towards him for lying to me, and most of all, anger towards the life he had built behind my back. The thought of those lost love letters, written with such passion and sincerity, now felt like a cruel joke. I couldn't bear the thought of what else I might discover, but at the same time, I needed to know more. How far did this deceit go? And how could I ever trust him again? As I pored over the letters, my mind reeled with the weight of John's deceit. The more I read, the more I realized that his affair had been going on for years, long before we even met. He'd written to her about our future plans, our children, and our home life. It was as if he'd been living two separate lives. And it wasn't just me who'd been lied to. Our kids were oblivious to the fact that their father had another family. I couldn't bear the thought of them finding out, of being exposed to this toxic secret. But how could I keep going on like this? The pain and hurt were suffocating me. Every time I looked at John, every time he smiled or laughed with our children, a piece of me died inside. The consequences of his actions had been catastrophic, not just for me, but for all of us. As I looked through those lost love letters, a name kept popping up. Emily's name wasn't the only one that had been hidden from me. John's best friend from college, Alex, was the one who had introduced them in the first place. At the time, I thought he was just being a good friend, but now it all made sense. He was covering for him, keeping his secret safe. The more I read, the more I realized that Alex had known about John's infidelity all along. And not only did he know, he had been helping him keep it hidden. As Sarah sat in stunned silence, the weight of John's betrayal began to sink in. She thought back to her childhood, remembering the countless times her own parents had lied to each other, to their friends, even to themselves. The way they'd gloss over the truth with a smile and a well-timed laugh. It was as if deception was an art form in her family, passed down through generations. Sarah's eyes wandered around the room, taking in the familiar yet suffocating space. She felt like a caged bird, beating her wings against the bars of a loveless marriage. The weight of her husband's secrets was crushing her, and she knew she couldn't continue down this path. As she gazed at the old family photo album on the coffee table, a particular letter caught her eye. It was from her husband to her, written years ago, filled with promises of forever love and devotion. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes as she remembered the countless times he had read it out loud to her, making her believe in their happily ever after. But now she felt like a fool for being so blind. The laughter that had once been so genuine now seemed like a distant memory. It was then that Sarah realized she'd reached her breaking point. She couldn't keep pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. With a newfound sense of determination, she began to make plans for her exit, knowing it wouldn't be easy but feeling empowered by the knowledge that she deserved better. As Sarah began to make her exit, a storm brewed around her. John's family, who had always been tight-lipped about his past infidelity, suddenly became vocal in their opposition to the divorce. They claimed that she was being unreasonable, that John needed time to work through his issues, but deep down they were desperate to keep the truth buried. The final confrontation was inevitable. I had gathered all my strength, my lost love letters in hand, ready to face the man who had shattered my trust. "John," I said, my voice shaking but firm, "we need to talk." He looked up from his phone, a mixture of guilt and desperation etched on his face. I handed him the stack of letters. "These were written by you, weren't they?" His eyes darted around the room before landing back on me. For a moment, I thought he'd deny it all over again, but something in his expression gave away the truth. He nodded, barely audible. The weight of those words crushed me. All the night spent wondering if my love was enough, all the tears shed for a relationship that was never real. It all made sense now. "Why?" I asked, my voice cracking with emotion. "Why did you keep this from me? Why did you lie to me?" He looked away, unable to meet my gaze. And in that moment, I knew it was over. The truth had finally set me free. As the days went by, I found myself lost in thought, reliving every moment that led me to this point. The discovery of his secret life was like a punch to the gut, leaving me breathless and reeling. But as the dust settled, I began to reflect on what I'd learned about myself and our marriage. I realized that I'd been holding on to the idea of us for so long, even when it was clear that he wasn't willing to work towards saving us. I remembered the countless nights I spent crying myself to sleep, wondering where I went wrong. But now, I saw that my worth wasn't defined by his love or acceptance. In fact, I started to understand that staying in a toxic relationship was like being trapped in a nightmare. You're so focused on surviving each day that you forget what it's like to truly live. And as I looked back, I knew that sometimes leaving is the only way to find yourself. It's scary, but it's also liberating. As I look back on the journey that brought me here, I realized that the hardest part wasn't the pain or the heartache. It was trusting my own instincts. Time and time again, I doubted myself, wondering if I was overreacting, if I was being too sensitive. But now I see that those gut feelings were trying to tell me something all along. I think about the countless nights I spent poring over love letters from my husband, searching for clues, trying to make sense of it all. In those quiet moments, amidst the chaos and confusion, I started to hear a different voice, my own. It was whispering, "Leave. Get out. You deserve better." And slowly but surely, I began to listen. I learned that sometimes you have to let go of what's familiar, even if it hurts, in order to find yourself again. Trust your instincts, no matter how scary it may seem. Know when to walk away from a situation or a relationship that's toxic or unfulfilling. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. As Sarah stood on the edge of this new chapter in her life, she couldn't help but think about all the emotions that had led her here. She remembered the countless nights spent poring over old photographs, the ones she'd discovered hidden away in a dusty attic. There were letters, too, love letters from her husband to another woman. The pain and anger she'd felt at first gave way to a sense of liberation as she realized she was finally free. No more pretending, no more lies. Sarah began to see that these lost love letters weren't just painful reminders of what had been taken from her, but also a testament to the strength and resilience that lay within her. As she looked out at the sunset, casting its warm glow over the landscape, Sarah felt a sense of hope rising up inside her. She knew it wouldn't be easy to rebuild her life, to learn how to trust again. But for the first time in years, she felt like she was walking towards the light, rather than away from the darkness. As I sat in therapy, trying to pick up the pieces of my shattered heart, my therapist posed a question that would change everything. "Sarah, how do you plan on rebuilding trust with yourself?" I was taken aback. Rebuilding trust wasn't just about others. It was about me too. I thought about all the times I'd doubted myself, all the moments I'd felt like I wasn't enough. As I sat amidst the scattered remnants of our relationship, something shifted inside me. It was like a weight had been lifted, but also a sense of responsibility. I realized that I'd spent so long focusing on him, on us, that I'd neglected my own needs. The lost love letters were more than just a reminder of what we once had. They were a testament to the sacrifices I'd made for our relationship. As I held those letters in my hands, something inside me shifted. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I felt free from the toxic hold he'd had on me. The words on those pages were more than just reminders of what we once had. They were a testament to the sacrifices I'd made for our relationship. But as I read through them again, I realized that those sacrifices had been made at my own expense. I'd lost myself in the process of trying to save him. And us. I remember feeling like I was drowning, suffocating under the pressure of his expectations. But now, holding those letters, I felt a sense of empowerment wash over me. It was like I'd finally found the strength to take back control of my life. And in that moment, I knew it was time to leave. Not just the marriage, but the pain and heartache that had become such a big part of who I was. If you're watching this, and you're still holding on to something that's draining your life force, know that you have the power to let go. Don't wait any longer to take back what's yours. As we close this chapter, let's remember that sometimes, It takes great pain to rediscover our true strength. Our story is one of loss and heartache, but also of resilience and transformation. If you're struggling with a similar situation, know that you are not alone. You have the power to create your own happy ending. Believe in yourself, trust your instincts, and don't be afraid to let go of what no longer serves you. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more real stories, raw emotions, and transformative takeaways.